Carina Gardner, welcome to Pardon My Success.
I am very excited to be here.
Get ready, it's the new edition. Your favorite morning meditation. Hey, it's me, pardon my success. I'm a hot mess.
You are the crafting queen, and I can't wait for you to just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you kind of get started?
Well, here's the crazy thing. I went to design school. My master's, my PhD are both in design. And I just thought, you know what? I am going to be one of those designers who does these cool minimalistic Bob Dylan posters and all of that. Yeah, no. That's not what happened. I found this crazy little niche industry called digital scrapbooking. This is 16 years ago. And this is why I liked it. I had two very small children, husband in law school. I just finished my doctorate. I was teaching at the University of Minnesota. And I was like, I don't want to sell anything that requires me to have inventory because you have to put out a lot of money for inventory, right? And then you've got to ship the inventory. And I was just like, I'm not going to do that. Even though I'm a designer and I'm a product designer, I'm not going to do that. So this digital scrapbooking thing was so fascinating because what you did was you created the product. You were a designer. You made these digital 12 by 12 papers and these accessories that would go with it. And then you allowed people to download them for a fee. And I was like, I think this is for me. This is absolutely going to be, the way I'm going to make money. And the first 11 months, if you've owned a business before, I made $300. So I made like hardly any money at all. Yeah. It just didn't work. I couldn't figure it out. And I finally found another site that was really popular selling physical products, scrapbooking products, and they were starting a digital scrapbooking store. So I joined them. And I really started actually making some money, and it kind of went from there. So now I do fabric for quilters and SVG files, which is these Cricut and Silhouette files for people. And I love designing for this industry.
That's so sick. Would you say most of your customers are?
45 to 65-year-old women.
Holding up our society, honestly. That is the demographic. Mothers and women.
Yeah. And that group is also, they're interesting because you're not there yet. You're so young and, vibrant and doing your thing. They're in a stage where we call it their encore career. So what happens is I think you find a great career, you go all the way in it, right? And then at some point you go, okay, I only have so much life left. What do I want to do with the rest of my life? And so we see a lot of women who are transitioning from regular careers in HR and administration. And oh my gosh, we've got doctors, and then they transition into this design thing and they're like, oh my gosh, where has this been my whole life? And I'm like, well, it was different before. It's way different now because most of us, not you, most of us were around when there was a time where the internet wasn't a great place to buy things. People were scared to buy things online because you didn't trust other people online. Amazon and all these other things have changed that. Now we all buy online with, no big deal at all, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, seriously. How did you start your own business side of this?
Well, I mean, I was doing freelance at the time. So I was doing that little business piece, but figuring out the online platform piece, it was new, it was emerging. And once I figured out that I could just make money from other people's platforms, I mean, it's just like an affiliate now, right? I was like, if I'm going to make royalties from the products that I'm going to make from other people's websites, that's when it got huge for me. And now we're on I think we have 9 platforms that we make money from. That's the business. That's my design business. That has nothing to do with my design program. They're the ones most people see me on, which would be Etsy, Shutterstock. I think I'm on Adobe Stock, but we haven't put very much on there. My biggest one is Silhouette. So I work directly for Silhouette. There are so amazing things. I do have contracts. So I'm a fabric designer for Riley Blake. So we consider that a platform. But there are so many ways for people to make money. I have thousands of products. And I think last time I checked, I don't really know how many, but I've designed over the last 16 years, at least 10,000 products. And so it's really about volume and getting really good at what you're doing, because it's very hard not to become the brand or the expert when you produce as much product as someone like I do.
What major platforms do you actually use to design? Like, what are your main mediums?
Adobe all the way. So if you are thinking about getting into design, 100%, it has to be Adobe right now. There are a lot of people who are asking me about Affinity, which is a vector-based program, Corel, Inkscape, some of the old school things. But I am telling you right now, when I taught university, we taught Adobe. And whatever you see designers coming out and using directly from university should be what you're using. It's the professional platform. Furthermore, with all the AI stuff coming out, Adobe has integrated that directly into their software. They're very smart about it. So they still are the leader. And I cannot recommend enough. If you're thinking about getting into design, you must be using Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Photoshop, and possibly even InDesign.
I've definitely been familiar with Photoshop, but what are your thoughts on Canva?
So here's the problem with Canva. If you are a designer who wants to make money as a designer and you are selling products that you're making from Canva, you're second level. We call this second level design. So the designers we teach are the ones who make the Canva products, right? They're the ones making money from the people who are buying on the top level and designing from Canva. We like the people who are designing at the bottom level. Why? If you design on Canva, first of all, you have to deal with commercial rights issues, right? So like you have to make sure you have a license that will allow you to take those things and sell them on other platforms because you're taking it from Canva, right?
Yeah.
So there's that issue. Okay. The second one is you are limited. You are limited to what the bottom designers, the foundational designers are creating for you so that you can make and go sell out there. Now, I'm not saying there aren't a lot of people doing it. Canva reminds me of AI in this way. So like right now you're seeing in AI, lots of things that all looks kind of the same, right? It's all coming out. It's looking the same. Same thing. You're second level designer. You're not actually doing the design work and there's nothing wrong with it. You're just going to be limited is what I'm saying. There are lots of people who make money this way. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that you're going to be limited. And so the moment there are like hundreds of thousands of Canva designers out there, who are you up against? Other Canva designers, right? If you're a designer who's working solely in the software, designing new stuff, creating style, creating brand, then you just have greater prospects. I personally, in my own company, if we're hiring a graphic designer who is working in-house, and we do have an in-house designer, which, man, is it hard as anything to be a designer for a CEO who is a designer? It's rough. But they have to know Illustrator and Photoshop and InDesign because we absolutely will not take stuff from Canva. Like that, an in-house designer shouldn't be doing that. If you go work at Target, they're not going to hire someone who just knows Canva. That's not going to work.
And how would you say the best way to learn Photoshop actually is nowadays?
There's so many ways. Oh my gosh. So you can definitely go back to design school, right? To know Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign. Photoshop is actually less relevant than Illustrator. The problem is right now, Photoshop is up against a program called Procreate. Have you ever used Procreate before?
I haven't, no.
Okay, it's on an iPad and it's just easier to use than Photoshop because you can hand draw directly in it. So it feels more natural. It's like a much easier drawing app. So Photoshop in a lot of ways is up against Procreate. There is nothing that's really up against Illustrator for vector files. And if you're creating logos, brand materials, anything like that, you really need a vector file, not a pixel file. Pixel files can only get so big. Vector files can be as big as you want them to be.
I had to vectorize something recently for like a name tag and they were like, we need this vectored. And I was like, time to figure out what that means. Okay. Woo. But you could just do that on Illustrator, you're saying?
Yeah. So you would do an image trace is what we call that. So, but for most designers, you're designing directly in it so that everything you create is vectored to begin with, which by the way, is the only way, in my opinion, to really make residual income as a designer. Because if I create something, for example, I design all of my fabric lines go into Illustrator. So I'm designing them in Illustrator. Once I've designed it as a fabric line, I own the copyrights to it, even though I've royaltied it out to Riley Blake. So then we'll take something like that and I will make it into a sticker sheet and sell 5 or 6 sticker sheets digitally. And then I will take it and rip it apart and sell it as clip art to the business markets. Then we'll rip it apart and sell it as dingbats in the font market. And so, or I'd rip it apart and send it to scrapbooking and sell it in the scrapbooking market. And so a good designer knows how to rip apart their stuff. So they're not illustrating lots of times. They're actually in production work, trying to get it into a lot of mediums for the right people. And what we see see is those that stay in Procreate and Photoshop, they do not have that ability, because the problem is the files have to be resized, changed, and skewed, and it doesn't work very well to bring into other mediums.
So Illustrator is the way to go, is what I'm hearing here.
Yeah. Yeah. Even my little sister, who actually looks just like you. That's
Oh
the
my
crazy
gosh.
thing. My little sister looks a lot like you. She is a fashion designer,
Good for her.
and she's 11 years younger than me. And she is in New York City, and she uses Illustrator. So now,
Okay.
like for all the sewing patterns, she was working for a lot of these. You guys would know the names if I told you them. But like all these big companies where they're doing clothing patterns, she was the one who would design everything to get it ready to go. And she was using Illustrator for it. Most designers at this point in time ought to be in Illustrator in one way,
Okay.
shape, or form.
All right, you've changed my mind. I am ashamed now to say that I have been a loyal Canva girly since like high school.
Well, there's nothing wrong with
But
Canva.
I
And
was
if you're
just a
not
baby.
and if you're not designing full time, Canva is actually an amazing tool for you, right? So
Yeah.
unless you're like designing full time and you're trying to make money from Canva, then that's one thing. But if you're using Canva to use it for your social media, and you're using it for your podcast, and you're using it for, that's actually the perfect way to use Canva, because it's really meant for business owners to use it correctly. Yeah. No, what I'm talking about is designers who actually make money from the
Yes.
product creation itself.
Gotcha. Because I will design for businesses and things like that. But like, no, that makes a lot more sense. I feel guilty using templates oftentimes on Canva. It feels inauthentic, you know?
It's not your original work, but
Yeah,
here's the thing.
exactly.
Great things about good designers is that you're just trying to create a visual solution for somebody else, right? So you're building it directly in that template and you're handing it to someone else. It's not that big of a deal. Like, so
Yeah.
if you're using, anyone who's listening, who's starting a business, using, creating things for other people, 100% Canva is a great place to go. You're probably also doing things like buying clip art. Guess what? We love that. Those that are like foundational designers, we want you to buy our clip art, right? You need to know where you're at. If you're a foundational designer, which is like the kind of designers I teach, you should be doing one thing. If you are a designer who is like a business designer, like you're just sending out and creating things for other people, that's a totally different game.
Okay. You've made me feel so much better. Everyone out there, you're doing okay. We're all right. But if you want to get into the big leagues, you're saying that in the University of Minnesota, which I'm a Midwestern girly myself. How did you kind of get started teaching out of designing?
Yeah, such a crazy thing. So I actually have an undergrad degree from BYU
Oh my
in
gosh.
marketing. So communications marketing. And I
I
wanted
have
to
a
be
communications management degree. That's so funny.
Love it. Yeah, yeah. I love the communications degrees are really fantastic. I think they're good foundational.
Yeah.
I've even talked to my daughters about like that's a great foundational place to be.
Mhm.
And so that was a great degree, but I wanted to do advertising. And I found that people who were in charge of the visuals, they controlled everything about the advertisement. You had a copywriter, you had a visual person. And I was like, you know what? I think I need to learn how to be the visual person. So I went to the University of Minnesota just for a master's degree. That's what I went for. And I fell in love with design. I was like, this is the place to be. I didn't really want to do advertising at that point. I was just like, I just want to design, and ended up getting my master's and my PhD there and then teaching. And I really, really loved it. I loved everything about it. And so that's how I got into design. It was actually this weird roundabout way. I wasn't one of those super creative types who were like just amazing artists in elementary, high school. Like I wasn't that. I was actually like on the speech team, and I was like that's why I did a communications degree. And so I think that good design is actually learned. And it's a really hard skill at this point because you have to know software. And so I really think anybody can get into design now because it's the face of it has changed from what it used to be. Like in the 80s, you weren't using a computer. You were doing screen prints. So you were hand drawing everything, right? So software has changed that because just like you can use Canva to build a template pretty fast, Illustrator does that for designers. It just makes it really easy to build things very fast.
What do you plan on doing next? Like, what is the next horizon for you?
Well, so right now I own a design program. It's 3 years old, and I have some very secret things happening that I am not allowed to talk about.
Okay.
I wish I could. I've been on so many podcasts this last week, and everyone's like, "So what's next? What's the big thing?" And I was just like, I I can't even tell you because it involves the government. So it's like there are lots of things happening that are really, really exciting, but I can't talk about it. But I'm just going to say this. So the program I have right now, and especially for those of you who are listening who are very young, I am going to tell you to learn as much as you can. Just learn as much as you can. So my business is 16 years old. 3 years ago, I decided to start a design program. We went from zero to multi-million very quickly. Okay. Very, very good sized team. We sell this design program, but it is an exceptional design program that teaches something that no one else is teaching. We're teaching design business. And I think there's a lot of money to be made for those who can find the little crevices that are not being talked about, used, thought about. And for me, in the crafting industry, it's not knowing how to start a design business. People know how to design, but they don't know how to start a design business. And
Yeah.
so, because of that, we were able to really dig into this one little marketplace that has been built up and has done amazing things. I think in a couple of years, maybe sooner than that, even, I'd love to come back and tell you guys the next step for us that I can't talk about yet, because that would be fun.
Not for a couple years. Oh my gosh. For some reason, the way that you said government made me believe, I was like, oh my God, she's for sure designing all of the new military uniforms. That's the patterns.
What?
It's
No,
happening.
not happening.
They're gonna slay. They're gonna slay the
Oh my
entire
gosh.
world.
Can you
It'll be great.
imagine if like some designer came in and was like, and this is the way this is all gonna look?
And they're pink. And I'd be
No,
like, I'll join the military. You got
no,
me.
no,
You
no, no,
got me.
no. I wish, how fun would that be? Like if everybody was wearing pink. Yeah, no, that's not the way it's going. But it's a couple of years because of the process we have to go through to create the
Mhm.
kind of institution we want to create. So
Okay.
at the end of the day, like dream really big, but like you have to work day in and day out in your business in a way that is just, it's going to be a little bit, it's a lot of work is the bottom line. But can I ask you how old you are? Because you are young.
I actually just turned 25.
Because I just listened to one of your podcast episodes.
Oh
So I have a 20-year-old. Okay. So I
my,
have a kid that
I
maybe I
would
couldn't have
not have
had.
believed that.
Yes, I have a 20-year-old. Okay.
How old were
So
10 when you had your child? What?
yeah, I'm in my dreams. I am 44. Okay. So those of you who are listening to me,
Wow.
I'm okay
You
with
look
my age.
incredible, queen.
Thank you very much. Those great Asian genes, right?
Literally. Oh my God. Okay. Are you also a mixed kid? I've been wanting to ask you.
Yes, I'm a mix. That's why you look just like my little sister.
Thank you. Okay.
Like you
There we
look
go.
just like my little sister. She even has like the blonde highlights half the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's why it's just
Oh
kind of
my
making
God. Wait, which side, which parent?
my mom is Chinese.
My mom is Chinese as well.
Where is she from? Is she
Changchun up in Dongbei.
okay? My mom is from Malaysia. So she's ethnically Chinese, but she's from Ipoh, which is a couple hours
Okay.
from Kuala Lumpur. So I have family in Singapore and all over Malaysia. I mean, I looked at you and I was like, she's clearly half. But sometimes like half Japanese can sometimes also Japanese, Korean, like any of the halves, you have to kind of be like, well, they could be
Yeah.
sort of. Well, you're going to love this then. I know we're not talking about design, but you are going to love this. Genetics are crazy because my dad is a redhead. I
Mhm.
actually have two full-blown redheads of my children.
That's
Full
crazy.
blown. My 16-year-old has curly red hair, and it's like she looks like she's from Ireland. Like she does not look like my child at all.
I've
Like at all.
been worried about that. I'm dating a white man, aren't we all? And we often talk about the fact that like he's like our kids are not gonna be like they're gonna be white. I'm sorry, but they are. And I'm like
All three of my children look very, very white.
so white, just the whitest of whites, but it's okay. We're gonna love them. It's gonna be great. No, but that's so funny. And I'm guessing your dad is a white man.
Yes, yes.
Yes. Aren't they all? Aren't
Yeah.
they always? And are you from the Midwest or where are you from?
I am not. I'm originally from Tennessee.
Oh, okay. Oh
So
my
I grew up in
gosh.
Tennessee. I currently live in Utah, but I did all my graduate work in Minnesota. So
That's so cool. Are you Mormon living in Utah?
I am actually.
That's really
No
cool.
one
That's
has ever
amazing.
asked me that on a show,
Really?
but yes, I am. But I was LDS even when I was in Tennessee.
Okay, I was gonna ask when you said you went to BYU. I was like, oh my gosh, are you Mormon?
It's a religion. It will definitely, like, there are cons and pros. Everybody is in or out on it. But yes, it's been a really good thing for me
Hmm.
specifically because I think it grounds me. But
Yeah.
it's not for everybody, and we're cool with that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. How would you say that like your religion kind of plays a part in your design at all?
I don't know that it 100% does, except for I will say that, and I've been seeing this really interesting trend in business owners online. They are all going off of alcohol. That's like the new thing. I've seen it on, oh my gosh, these huge multi-million of followers, influencers. They're talking about how they've been sober
Yeah,
and that they haven't been drinking.
I
And
have seen this.
it's, which is a really interesting thing because I've never drunk. So like it
Hmm.
has never affected me. As I think about it, it makes a ton of sense that I've been able to build a multi-million dollar business the way I have because I just physically am able to. I'm never hungover, right?
Yeah.
I'm not socially drinking, which I have no problem with. Most of my girlfriends that are CEOs drink. I hang out with them. It's a wonderful thing. They love it because they have a designated driver. I don't mind it. In fact, I kind of love it. I love the culture that does actually happen around drinking. There's something lovely about it. I just don't partake in it. I am able to work a much longer day. I feel really healthy in my lifestyle and my lifestyle choices. And I think that's the piece of religion that contributes really actually to my business. Just
Yeah.
being able to be really, really focused because here I
You
am
have to
doing
be.
the
Yeah,
thing
the
I do.
mindset. I've definitely seen that as well. People have been saying, yeah, that they're going sober. And I feel like it's like the next cigarettes where everyone has kind of realized maybe this isn't like
Yeah.
good.
The studies show
Yeah.
that it poisons your liver, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And you don't have to deal with the hangover. And being
Yeah.
that productive is going to pay off.
Just to be totally fair, I'm freaking addicted to sugar. So I wish we could take that off the table because that would take me to the next level, right?
So tell us more a little about your design school.
First of all, if you're a creative of any sort and you're like, oh my gosh, I would love to be a designer or I would like to create on a daily basis. And so
Hmm.
what happened was I had owned my business for about 13 years as a practitioner. I was making about 4 times what the normal graphic designer made. And a lot of that was just literally because I was following my own business methods, right? And figuring out these online platforms where I could make money doing it. And as people started asking me, like, I don't understand how you're doing this, Carina, like, I would love to learn. I was like, well, I guess I could teach you guys, like, sure, why
Yeah.
not? So it turned into like me just like kind of launching basically a 6-month program where I would get on once a week. I would critique everybody's like design work, just if you were in my university classroom. So it was really academically based. I made some courses that went along with it so that they knew what
Hmm.
they should be doing production wise and all of that. And I just really loved it. And I started seeing all these successes. People were like, I had no idea I could do this. I had no idea I could do this. I had no idea I could make money. And people were like, they were making money. They were actually like getting sales and they were like, I'm just doing what Karina said to do. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like, why don't we teach this anywhere? Like, why am I the one teaching this?
Yeah.
And I think the thing I realize is there's just so few of us that know the best places and how
Yeah.
to get started and also how to change. Because here's the thing. One place that is making a lot of money 5 years ago is not the place that's making a lot of money now. And so you have to be really flexible and understand the reason for why you design one place and how to start a new place.
Hmm.
Not just like, oh, the place to go right now is Shutterstock, right? Like if you tell a designer that and then they're working on Shutterstock and they're not making very much money, they're like, well, Karina said this was the place to go. Well, it doesn't work for every person. Every person's design skill is different and the way they look is different and everything they do is different. And so one place might not work for someone. Furthermore, it might not be the place now, but it was the place 10 years ago, right?
Hmm.
And so that's the thing we have to be really careful about in business is we have to understand how to be flexible and pivot smart to make it
Hmm.
all work. So I was making a lot more money than most designers. And so I just started teaching it. And it turned into, we've been doing this now, we're about to hit 3 years. It turned into something I had no idea it was going to be. I had no idea it was going to be this like massive, crazy success, that people would be clamoring to come into the program. We actually have a process where we kind of monitor who comes in.
Oh my
You have to
gosh.
come to a design boot camp first before you can even come into Design Suite, because we want to make sure you're a good fit for our program. And it's not because we're like trying to not let people in, but it's because we're so serious about what we teach and we're so confident in what we teach. A lot of online programs, they have really like, I think the last rate I heard was like 10% of people get through the whole program. The last stat we put out was in December, and we had, I think it was like 69% of our
Wow.
people opened their first shop, and something like, I want to say it was like 59% had their first sale. So like that's for us, that's trajectory. If you can open a
Yeah.
shop, get your first sale, then there's no problem continuing to make sales.
Those are great stats. Absolutely. Yeah. And like, even, yeah, just getting people to finish a program like that, I'm sure is really complicated. That's so amazing that you are showing people how to actually make money from that, because I feel like a lot of qualms of going to art school and things like that, like I was a theater major, are that you don't really learn the business side of it. And like that is the more difficult part, I feel like, for most people, because that is how you're supposed to get yourself out there.
Let me tell you the biggest thing. Okay, so I have a new book out called Make Art That Sells. Okay,
Okay.
so this book, I'm going to show it to you, even though I know we're on
Yes.
a podcast.
Promo.
Looks like this, right?
Amazing.
Okay,
It's going to be linked
so
below.
okay, Make Art That Sells, which by the way, you guys, if you want to learn more about this, I have a free masterclass for you. So just hold on and I'll give you a coupon code so you can get it.
Love that.
So here's the deal. If you want to get into actually owning a business that you yourself own, okay, like there are lots of obvious things out there. You could walk into a Walmart or a Target, and right now, I don't know when this is going to be aired, but like there's Easter stuff out, right? So you could sell Peeps, right? So
Yeah.
that's like selling something, right? What I find, it's the inobvious stuff that's being sold in the minor markets where you're going to make the most money. Okay. So for us, it is crafting markets. So people who are making files for SVG files, or surface pattern designs, or this new thing that's come out in the last few years called print on demand. So POD. So print on demand things where you're not having to do inventory. But there's like all of these things out there that are tiny little nooks of the market that if you can find your niche, that's where the money really actually is. And Make Art That Sells, there is a great formula for it in this book. It's an art history book, so it's kind of fun. Like every chapter introduces a piece of the formula, as well as introduces an artist to you that you maybe even already know, like Vincent van Gogh or Norman Rockwell or Pablo Picasso, right? So it's meant to be a fun book. But by the end, you'll have a formula that will help you determine style, make sure that you're getting volume, knowing when you need to pivot, making sure you're putting the time involved and the consistency. And so it will help you kind of figure out what you're doing. So even if you're listening to this and you're like, I'm not a designer, or I don't want to be a designer, I want to be an author, I want to be an actress, I want to be a musician, right? You can still use the formula. You have to change some things around. You have to like kind of go, okay, Carina said design, but here I'm going to use X, Y, and Z. We did this for my daughter, who's a creative writer. And instead, the one of the pieces is product that you have to put in. For designers, product could be stickers, it can be planners, it could be photographs, right? For an artist, the product is the service, right? So acting. For an author, it's a book. The product is the book. So you just have to kind of rethink the way I've structured it to fit your medium. Just go to makeartbook.com. Okay. Makeartbook.com. The link for the Amazon is there. So you can grab that for the book if you want it. But there's a masterclass below. It's totally free. You're going to put in the coupon code MAKEART. And so don't pay for it. What I can tell you, people who like go in there, pay for it. I'm like, no, don't pay for it. Use the code MAKEART and you'll get that lesson for free. You don't need the book for it. I will literally get in and just tell you all the things about what I talked to you about the book. I give you the formula, I give you a worksheet to use, and you can make art that sells.
That's amazing. Everybody get out there. Let's make some art that sells. We're going to do it. We are all creative people. And as you said, like these are things that are learned and you can learn it. All of us can. And I really appreciate you coming on today. I'm really excited to come on your podcast. It's actually going to be my first time going on somebody else's podcast, which is really exciting.
Awesome.
So I'm really excited.
Yeah.
So guys, head on over to Carina's podcast. What is it called? Sorry.
Make and Design with Carina Gardner. I had to think about that.
Design. with
Yeah.
Carina Gardner. It's going to be amazing. I'm really excited. See you all there. Thank you so much, Carina, for coming on Pardon My Success. I appreciate you so much. This has been so much fun. You are amazing, and I will talk to you so soon.
Are you PMSing?